I'd like to take a closer look now at Powell's testimony and the state of the U.S. economy. We're joined by Mike Archbold, the former CEO of GNC and a trustee for the U.S. Committee for Economic Development. Mike, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Do you agree with Mr. Powell's upbeat assessment of the U.S. economy?
So I do. I think that's just one person's view. I think more importantly, the consensus of economists is that there is an upbeat economy, and there are forecasts, of course, range as to what upbeat means, and some of them are talking about 3% growth and others 4% growth. But I think in any event, it is considered a good growth opportunity going forward for the U.S. economy. Most economists agree on that. It's easy to see how they get there. We've got a current trend right now that is very healthy, coupled with continuing stimulative effects of the tax reform as well as deregulation, I think is what's giving comfort to economists to come up with those forecasts.
So what do you see in the near future for rate hikes? How soon and how much?
So the Federal Reserve has stated that their expectations right now are for 2 more rate hikes this year. That is what the markets have built into the futures. So it looks like the markets and the Fed are in sync here. I think it's important to note that Chairman Powell, in his remarks in talking about the additional 2 rate hikes, was cautious, and that was a little bit of news today. He used the term that is the right approach for now. That is appropriate for him. It's something we've seen from Chairman Powell, where he continues to reserve the right to adjust these goals and targets based upon future forecasts and new facts and circumstances as they build them in.
Can you speak to what impact this would have on the housing market? I can speak for some realtors who tell me these interest rates have actually slowed their sales in what is normally their busiest time of the year.
Well, yes, this is a busy time for the residential real estate market, and any kind of increase in interest rates does have the risk of increasing the costs and therefore creating somewhat of a dampening effect. But I think that's taken into account in the overall growth rates that the economists have built in.
All right, let's talk about the trade war. He specifically talked about this and how it could impact economic growth. IMF specifically has said it could cost the global economy $430 billion.
So that's a big number. So I think it's important to put it in context. So I think that's about 0.5% of the entire world economy. So that is a significant number. I think similar to our conversation before, when Chairman Powell was asked about this, he was very cautious to dance around this and make sure he wasn't actually stepping out of his lane, if you will, making sure that he wasn't speaking for what is the role of legislators or for the president, and really just monitoring, dealing with the monetary impact that he's required to. So I think it's important to think of the size of that trade impact, 0.5% of the GWP, gross world product, if you will, and that is certainly significant, and that's a challenge. It has the potential to impact everyone throughout the world, certainly the 2 largest economies in the world, and 2 really key trading partners right now, and that is a challenge going forward. I, for one, continue to be optimistic that perhaps President Trump's words and announcements are intended to create a negotiation, a dialogue, and ultimately a settlement to move forward. And I'm encouraged by President Xi's comments, where he has indicated openness to continuing to reduce tariffs, open up markets, and increase the level of commitment towards protecting intellectual property.
So concerning our overall economy here in the U.S., do you see any other barriers in the near future, maybe midterm elections, consumer debt?
So there's a lot of possibilities out there. So there's a lot of talk about, if the midterm elections flip any of the houses, and if then they could turn around and do something with undoing tax reform, or if. So there's a lot of possibilities out there, but I think the one that would concern me more is one that's more of a probability. It's just a question of when, and that is really the impact of our national debt. The national debt, based upon the latest CBO estimates, is projected over the next 10 years to exceed 100% of our GDP. I think it's critically important that we get that under control. And I think in moments of rational conversation, politicians, businessmen, economists all agree that that is a problem that needs to be addressed. And I think that we need to get our elected officials to put everything on the table to be able to address it.
All righty. Well, Mike Archbold, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.